When a big villain debuts, they like to show why they are a force to be feared. This is done to make not only our main characters realize, oh wow, this guy is gonna be tough to beat, but it also makes us at home think, how is the main character supposed to beat that? So then the question becomes, well, how do you show someone is insanely strong in the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise? Why? You just have them absolutely obliterate someone. This feat can be done in several ways. Winning a duel in a single turn, beating multiple opponents at once, beating a previous big bad villain, or just generally going a bit too far in a duel. Today, I want to look at 10 times the villains in the Yu-Gi-Oh series went for that overkill. Let's start first with To kick things off, this is the only time I'm going to be loose with the term villain. That is because I'm using Kaiba for this one. Now, Kaiba isn't a villain. He hasn't been a villain since like the first episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh series. Kaiba is antagonistic to our main character. He has his own goals and desires, and if they are in the way of Yugi achieving that, then he will get in the way of it. So I think we can let this one slide just for this one, and that's why I put it so low on the list. But it is a huge overkill moment for Kaiba. This is because during Battle City, Kaiba has just been given Obelisk the Tormentor, one of the 3 Egyptian god cards, which are the most powerful cards in the world. Naturally, Kaiba is foaming at the mouth, dying to test this bad boy out on someone in a duel. Now, you'd think if you're a really, really good duelist, one of the best in the world, and you've just been given one of the best cards in the entire world, you'd want to fight someone like Yugi, or seek out Marek, or go against one of the former top performing duelists from Duelist Kingdom that are in your Battle City tournaments. Kaiba decides no. Instead, I'm going to duel this random hoodlum in a dingy alleyway. Now, the power difference between these two characters would already be enough to say Kaiba's going a bit over the top with this one, but he doesn't stop there. He tells the dude to make the most powerful deck he can with all of these rare cards he's brought for him in a briefcase. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to see the duel, but from the before level of confidence this guy had, cut to Obelisk the Tormentor being summoned, hard cut to that guy absolutely bricking his pants, it's safe to say the power of an Egyptian god card was way too much for him. He did not need to go that far. And what does Kaiba do? He just walks away calmly. Oof, nice. This duel is an interesting one. Spoilers, the companion to the main character, actually becomes the villain towards the end of the series. He challenges a character called Queen to avenge one of his AI friends that was destroyed under her orders. Now, Queen puts out a board of Allure Queen monsters. Her main monster having 5,000 attack points and must be attacked on Ai's turn, along with her 2 back row cards, which are boosting her monster's attack while also protecting it. This could be a tough board to beat over. However, Ai declares it's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. And, well, he proves that it was. Using his At Ignista deck, he builds a board consisting of his Dark Templar Link, followed by his Synchro and Xyz At Ignistas. He uses their effects to wipe her back row, then destroy her monsters, leaving her wide open for a triple attack for game. However, here are where things get spicy. Queen cheats. Refusing to lose, she activates her skill, which I want to just remind you are only allowed to be done during speed duels. This is a master duel, so you're not supposed to do them, but Ai's like, all right then, go for it. Through her skill Honey Trap, she regains all the life points she lost and then sets a powerful trap from her deck face down. Now what happens if Ai declares an attack with his remaining monsters, they'll all get shuffled back into his deck, wiping his entire field. So unfortunately he's going to have to end his turn there, or maybe not. Ai summons his Lingaribo in his grave. He then proceeds to attack. Due to Lingaribo, it has the effect to negate a trap. And so, with yet again another open field, Ai attacks her directly with his 2 final attacks, winning the duel on his first turn and in a single turn. As the duel ends, he does reiterate that he did say, the duel would be easy. Now, just before the Battle City Finals took place, Bones is out there in a graveyard with his two companions, spooking duelists into relinquishing their duel discs and their locator cards. Now, in comes Yami Bakura, already a spooky fellow himself. He's not disturbed by this at all. In fact, he even asserts his dominance by not only defeating the Muscle in hand-to-hand, but he also goes on to clap Bones in a duel. Now, the duel at first seems quite fair, like a good back and forth. However, we do get revealed on Bakura's last draw, he's disappointed he drew the game-winning card so early, as he wanted to punish Bones even further. Following this, the overkill happens. Yami Bakura, more than capable of just taking the locator cards and being on his merry way, instead invokes the punishment of the shadow game he set up. Bones is such a non-threat character, like you don't have to go so far for Bones. But Bakura decides to have all three of them dragged down into the pits of hell by literal spooky ghosts to suffer for all eternity in a world of burning flames. This fate is confirmed by the fact that Bones is never seen again throughout the rest of the series. Talk about ghoulish overkill. Now this one's a little bit different. We've talked about OTKs, sending people to hell. How about the main villain of the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D series being beaten easily by the true new main villain of the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D series? Zone. The duel between Zone and the previous villain, Aporia, only lasts 7 turns. Which, if you compare it to Yusei's duel against Aporia, that duel took 23 turns. While the Jack, Leo, and Luna duel, which keep in mind was a 3-on-1 situation, that still took a whopping 12 turns. So when I say the fact that Zone was able to not only take on Aporia one-on-one, defeat him in under a third of the time the main character could, and also do it solo, that's a pretty good way to establish this new villain is pretty scary. And using his godlike cards from the 5D's world, the Time Lords, which granted him a win through an effect that burned the remainder of Aporia's life points just for drawing a card, it's easy to see how hyped up Zone was. And on top of it all, Aporia is killed after this duel. So pretty dark, pretty overkill, especially since it was his friend, but not really his friend. It was a copy of his friend, so he doesn't really see him as a friend, but still kind of insane, really. Now, during my top 10 overkill moments, I talked about the Yuri versus the 5 random fodder enemies, where he's like, I'll take on all 5 of you simultaneously, and then wipes them all out in a single turn with a single monster and just obliterates them. That is a huge overkill flex by a villain of the series. So it's a shame that I can't include that one here, but it doesn't really matter because he's got another overkill moment. During his duel against one of the best duelists from his home dimension and a familiar face to GX fans, Alexis Rhodes, Yuri, wanting to prove his superiority, decides to handicap himself by choosing to duel without his deck. Instead, he says he will win, and I'm not making this up, with Structure Deck Ancient Gear. Basically, it's the deck all the fodder minion characters use throughout the show. However, throughout the duel, despite playing a in-universe fun tier deck compared to Alexis's in-universe meta Cyber Angel deck, he is doing quite well to hold his own. However, it is revealed that Yuri did add one additional card to his deck. Yet again, something else GX fans might be familiar with. The ultimate fusion card, Super polymerization. He activates it to fuse his monster with Alexis's. Alexis is unable to respond because super polymerization cannot be responded to in any way, shape, or form. And so with this, he makes his ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, attacks Alexis's monster, dealing piercing battle damage, and winning the duel. All without needing to unsheath his actual deck. He won with a minion deck. That's insane.
いや、勝利は常に私の手の中にある。マジックカード。ワルキューレンリット発動.
It's the Grand Championship arc. Kaiba is hosting a tournament where the winner gets to duel against Yugi for a shot at his King of Games title. The villain of this arc is the corporate rival to Kaiba, Siegfried von Schroeder. Now his plans is to enter this tournament and sabotage Kaiba Corp, but to do that he needs to get as far as possible into the tournament, preferably the finals. The first opponent that he goes against are Rex and Weevil in disguise. Once found out they're not allowed to be in the tournament, Mokuba attempts to disqualify them, but Siegfried says no. He says he'll duel them anyway. In fact, he'll duel them together. Now, while I'm not saying Rex and Weevil are anything special in terms of their win record or anything like that, they are technically the first and second regional champions of Japan, so that's something. They should put up more of a fight than what we're about to see. However, what happens is when the duel begins, Weevil pops off, immediately getting out his boss monster, Insect Queen. Rex does the same, summoning out his Black Tyranno. Siegfried, absolutely unfazed, decides to just win on his first turn. He plays his Ride of the Valkyrie spell, summoning the two Valkyrie Ersts and Valkyrie Zvites in his hand. The Zvites destroy each of Rex and Weevil's monsters. The Ersts banish them from the graves and absorb their attack points. Siegfried then attacks with all four of his monsters and wins. Well, that was over quick, and if you're wondering how could Siegfried attack on his first turn if it's like a three-way duel, technically it was a one-on-one. It's just two people were dueling as one, since that was the rule. It's not actually like a tag duel or anything like that, so that's how that works. That's how he could attack on his first turn. Normally you have to go all the way around, but in this case it was fine. It was a flex. It was insane. Overkill. This one is an OTK, life points on the brink and making a huge comeback in a single turn, and as well, attempted murder. During the Friendship Cup, Yuzu is put up against this monstrosity. Throughout the duel, it becomes clear Sergey's deck and strategy is to self-inflict damage to himself to put him at a huge disadvantage for a devastating comeback. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more than that. Bro is, how do I put this lightly? A masochist? He absolutely loves the pain he inflicts upon himself and from others. And unfortunately for Yuzu, despite putting up a great fight, on the final turn he gets out his boss monster, whose attack is the difference between his and Yuzu's life points. Meaning this duel and all of the life points he lost were all a part of his plan. He uses its effect to reduce Yuzu's monster's attack to 100 and attempts to attack and go for game. Yuzu has one hope left. If she can just grab an action card to possibly save her in this duel, she might get another turn. However, Sergey runs his duel runner right into hers, causing her to fail to grab the action card, fall off her bike, take lethal damage, lose the duel, and unfortunately be flung into the side of a building where her duel runner explodes, seemingly killing her. And all Sergey has to say after this duel is done was, "That was beautiful." I would just like to remind everyone, this was the Friendship Cup. Now, usually a duel consists of a minimum of 2 turns. Your opponent builds a board, and then you make a board, and you break down your opponent's board, and you, if you're really good, attack on that turn and win, or sometimes it goes a bit longer. Well, how about we skip that first part? What if the opponent just doesn't get a turn. During the Crash Town arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, we meet a duelist called Lawton. During his duel against a guy called Radley, he showcases an insane insta-win combo. Are you ready for the quickest duel analysis of all time? Well, here we go. The duel begins and Radley summons Gatling Ogre. He sets 5 spells and traps face down and then sends all 5 of them to the grave through Gatling Ogre's effect. Gatling Ogre's effect is for each spell or trap that he sends to the graveyard, he deals 800 damage. 800 times 5 is 4,000 life points. 4,000 life points take away 4,000 life points is 0. Radley wins the duel, all without the opponents ever getting a chance to play a card. In Yugioh Zexal is a really good duelist. He went toe-to-toe with Kite Tenjo to his very last breath, and ultimately turns a new leaf because of Kite, revolting against Don 1000, the main villain of Yugioh Zexal. However, despite being insanely good, he's about to get insanely clapped, without Don 1000 even needing to play a single card on his first turn. You see, Don 1000 goes first in the duel. He then immediately ends his turn by playing nothing. Mizar's turn, Don 1000 activates Numeron Network from his hand on the opponent's turn, thanks to its effect. Mizar does all of his plays and gets out a board which he hopes to tribute all of his dragon monsters on the field in order to inflict damage to both his opponent and himself equal to the tributed monster's attack, essentially ending the duel in a draw. While sacrificing himself, very noble, he will rid the world of Don 1000 for good. That's not what happens though. Don 1000, having none of this, activates one of the effects of his field spell. He plays Numeron Spell Revision, which turns the effect of an opponent's spell into a different spell from their deck of Don 1000's choice. He chooses Mizar's Card of the Dragon King. Now, instead of tributing his field and dealing damage, this card tributes his field and lets him draw a card for each one. Unfortunately, only Mizar will take damage equal to the combined tributed monster's attack. Mizar loses the duel, technically by his own card, without the opponent needing to summon a single monster. It's actually crazy to think that Yuma and Shark go on to duel Don 1000 and win, because that is an insane play. And here we are already at the #1 spot, and then I'm giving it to Sartorius versus Prince Ojin. I'm using the term duel very sparingly here because this wasn't really a duel. For you see, in this duel, Sartorius was able to perform a 0-turn kill, essentially where you win without even needing to have a turn.
ワンターンキル。いや、最王のターンはまだ来ていない。これはまさに 0-turn kill.
What happens is Prince Ojin goes first. He summons out his satellite cannon. He then boosts its attack to 2000 through his charge spell. He then plays Mischief of the Time Goddess, which lets him skip Sartorius' turn and then move straight into his battle phase of his own next turn. So Sartorius never got a chance to play. That seems really broken. So, sorry, was it Prince Ojin that automatically won the duel without getting a turn? No, Sartorius is about to win the duel. Ojin attacks. As he does, he plays Limiter Removal to double Satellite Cannon's attack to 4000. If this attack is successful, he wins. Sartorius, however, activates the effect of his Arcana Force Temperance in his hand to negate any battle damage he would take from an attack. Following this, since Ojin was unable to win, he summons his Satellite Base. Unfortunately, due to this, Sartorius can now activate his Intervention of Fate. This lets him activate a normal spell in his hand, despite it being the opponent's turn, as long as they summoned a monster. He activates Ace of Sword. This card, depending on a coin flip result, will cause either Sartorius or Ojin to take damage equal to Satellite Cannon's attack. The result lands right side up, meaning Ojin takes 4000 damage. He loses the duel without Sartorius even needing to have a turn. It turns out you can't defy your destiny of getting OTK'd by the main villain of a arc.
確かに占いでもこのデュエルは私のターンを迎えずに終わると出ています。
And with that, that's my top 10 villain overkill moments. Want to watch the original overkill moments video? Well, you can watch that one right here. Or if you'd rather, oh my god, what is that? Oh! It's the subscribe button, not subscribe to. Oh, man. Oh, dear. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.